What do you think are the odds that there is life elsewhere in the universe?
They must be high, and I'll tell you why. People say, well, have you found life yet? No. Well, that's like going to the ocean. This has been said before, taking a cup of water, scooping up, and saying, there are no whales in the ocean, Here's my data, You need a slightly bigger sample. And so if you look at, for example, what we call the radio bubble, this is the sphere around Earth, centered on Earth, which is the farthest our radio signals have reached in the galaxy. And they're about 70 light years away. We've been transmitting radio signals inadvertently leaking into space for about 70 years. 70 light year radius sphere. Well, how big is the galaxy? Well, shrink that sphere down to maybe the size of a BB, and then the galaxy on that scale would be the size of this stage. That's how far our radio signals have traveled. And those aren't even the ones we sent on purpose. The ones we sent on purpose have traveled much less. So no, we haven't actually reached as far into the galaxy as we'd like before we would say definitively that there's no one intelligent living today. But here's some very simple facts. I can review them in 90 seconds. You look at the formation of the Earth and the earliest sign of fossil life. Subtract a few hundred million years at the beginning of Earth, when Earth was a shooting gallery. Earth was still accreting the birth materials of the solar system. It's hostile to complex chemistry over that time. Not fair to start the clock then. Wait a couple of 100 million years. Now start the clock and wait around and see when you have the first signs of single-celled life. At most, 400 million years. At most. Earth has been around for 4.5 billion? So Earth, without any help from us, with basic ingredients found throughout the universe, managed to create life, simple though it was. So, and Earth, one of, 8 planets, get over it. One of, sorry. Earth, an ordinary star, to suggest, and what are the ingredients of life? The number 1 atom in your body is hydrogen. Number 2 atom is oxygen, together making mostly water that's in you. Next is carbon in this order. Next is nitrogen. Next is other stuff. My favorite element, other, yeah. You look in the universe, the number 1 element in the universe is hydrogen. Next is helium, chemically inert, couldn't do anything with it anyway. Next is carbon. I think I left out oxygen there. Next is oxygen. Next is nitrogen. 1 for 1. We're not even made of odd things. The most common things in the universe are found here on Earth, and we're made of them. And carbon, one of the most chemically fertile element on the periodic table. It's not a surprise. We're carbon-based. Life is just the extreme expression of complex chemistry. So that's what biology is. So all these people who want to imagine, because they remembered their chemistry class, that silicon sits right below carbon on the periodic table. So it bonds similarly to carbon, so they want to imagine silicon-based life. I'm saying, okay, fine, but you don't have to. There's 5 times as much carbon in the universe as silicon. There's no need to even have to go there. We got enough to imagine just simply with the carbon atom at the center of these huge biological molecules. Point is, it happened relatively quickly with the most common ingredients in the universe. To now say life on Earth is unique in the universe would be inexcusably egocentric.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, okay.
And I would go further and say that if ever you meet somebody who wishes to claim that he believes or she believes that life is unique in the universe, then it would follow from that belief that the origin of life on this planet would have to be a quite stupefyingly rare and improbable event. And that would have the rather odd consequence that when chemists try to work out theories, models of the origin of life, what they should be looking for is a stupendously improbable theory, an implausible theory. If there was a plausible theory of the origin of life,
it wouldn't be it.
That's right, because then life would have to be
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Now maybe it is everywhere. My hunch is that there's lots and lots of life in the universe, but it's probably because the universe is so vast, the islands of life that there are so spaced out that it's unlikely that any one of them will ever meet any other, which is rather sad.
It's sad. However, let me make you happy a little bit more from that. We've learned now that we can model the formation of the solar system. In this period of time where Earth was being bombarded heavily, that's called the period of heavy bombardment in the early universe. We call it like we see it in astrophysics. Let the record show. I don't know if I've ever in my life ever understood the title of a biology research paper. I just want to say that. Just the words, I'm not feeling them, you know? They're too big, too many syllables. I'm off topic here. So back to the period of heavy bombardment, and with computer simulations, you can model what happens when an impact hits a planetary surface. And it's not much different from if you sprinkle Cheerios on a bed, which you would never do on purpose, but your kids would do this. And then you smack the surface of the bed, there's a sort of a recoiling effect, and Cheerios pop upwards. It turns out Mars may have been wet, we know at some point it had water, and fertile for life before Earth. And at this period of heavy bombardment, if it had started life, surely it would have been simple life. There's no reason to think otherwise. We've learned that bacteria can be quite hardy, as you surely know. So we imagine a bacterial stowaway in the nooks and crannies of one of these rocks that are cast back into space. In fact, if you do the calculation, there's hundreds of tons of Mars rocks that should have fallen to Earth by now over the history of the solar system. Maybe one of those rocks carried life from Mars to Earth, seeding life on Earth. My great disappointment would be going to Mars and finding Mars life based on DNA.
Yeah.
Then it would not have been a separate experiment in life. We would just all simply have to get over the fact that we are Martian descendants.
What we need is a second sample of life. We have only one at present. And
why have you only given us one?
It would be a disappointment, as you say, if we found life on Mars based on DNA. Well, at least if we found life on Mars based on the same DNA code.
Sure.
You could just about imagine DNA evolving twice, but you couldn't imagine the same four-letter code evolving twice.